Welcome back to the channel, guys. This is my 1968 Mooney M20F, and it is hiding a turbocharger under the cowling here, and that is the main reason that I bought it. Now, if you follow me, you know that I started with a Piper Cherokee, and I made the claim that I could own that airplane for free, and I just added up the numbers, I just sold the plane, and it turns out not only did I own the plane for free, but because the airplane market went up so much, I was able to sell it for a little bit of a profit, and it also paid for my flight training. So my total net expense with the Piper Cherokee for 1 year, with the pilot license and all the equipment that I bought, turned out to be $581. So I still think that aviation is incredibly affordable, and a lot of these planes are largely unexplored. Take, for instance, this Mooney M20F Turbo. At the higher flight levels, I can cruise over 200 miles an hour. When you look at the efficiency of this airplane at that speed, it's just incredible. It's incredibly cost effective to fly a plane like this. And let me give you an example with my Cherokee. I took it on a business trip up to the Pacific Northwest, and it took me about 12 hours to get up there. And I had to divert because of weather. The weather changed while I was in the air, and that airplane was so slow that what I had planned for didn't work out. So I had to take a different route over the forest at night, and I started getting icing on the wings. So then I had to descend to melt the ice. The Cherokee didn't have enough power to go up, so I had to descend. And so descending was a problem because there was terrain around me, and so I was relying on ForeFlight and my GPS to navigate through the terrain. Then the engine started cutting out. It started getting carb ice, and so that was an easy fix. I pulled the carb heat and the engine came back to life.
Salem Tower, Cherokee 4450 Juliet. I'm going to cancel the landing and go back up to Troutdale. I had some icing, but it looks like it melted.
50 Juliet Roger, transition improvement.
It was still a very scary experience, and I knew that if I made it out of that, I would want to upgrade my airplane. And so I ended up with this because it has a lot of nice safety features in it. Shoulder harnesses, a much better panel, and of course, much higher performance with the turbocharger. So when I was looking for a new airplane, I was talking to different people in the aviation community, and I figured out that the turbochargers are very largely misunderstood. And for me, it's a very familiar piece of equipment, and this is one of the most simple turbocharger systems ever. It's simply a manual wastegate that you engage when your manifold pressure goes down, and it gives you higher performance when it's hotter or you're at higher elevation, and it's just one of the best things that they ever added to these airplanes. It's so neat. And because it's not really understood by the aviation community, the value of these planes is very low. This plane only cost $107,500, and there is another one on the market right now for, I think, $134,000. And when you look at the performance of this compared to a Cirrus SR20 or even a Diamond DA40, which I was looking at spending a lot more money on one of those, this looks like a total bargain. I was in search for one of these. I saw it pop up at the broker, went to the logbooks, and then wired the money immediately. And there were a few problems with this plane when I bought it. When I got it back to California, it was leaking a lot of oil, and we tore it down, opened it up, cleaned everything out, and then I went out to do a leak test, just a run up, and the oil cooler blew up. The oil cooler literally exploded, oil everywhere. And I found out that the previous mechanic had mounted the new oil cooler relocation kit close to the frame, and the engine vibrated and cracked the oil cooler. I told the broker what happened, and they refunded me for the cost of replacement. Now, I also found a mechanic that is letting me do my own work on the airplane, and he is overseeing it, so that saved me quite a bit of money in replacing that oil cooler. So what would have been a job that cost over $2,000 with a lot of custom fabrication ended up only costing about $1,500. So we have a new oil cooler in here, and there's a couple other things that I have to do to this airplane. One thing I had to do was configure all the Garmin equipment. The Era 660 acts as a second screen for the GPS, the GTN 650. And so I had to configure the connection there. And then of course I had to connect my phone to the Garmin equipment to get ForeFlight on it. And then I also configured the G5s with the V speeds of the aircraft. So very basic setup things had to be done. The other thing is the fuel tank readings were not set up. So the fuel tanks were stuck on full the whole time. And that's a little bit dangerous because if you get a leak in the air, then you don't know that you're running out of fuel until your engine quits. When I went through the logbooks, I saw that the fuel senders had already been replaced. It has very nice fuel senders and it has a very nice engine monitor. And so getting the fuel gauges to work correctly is a very simple procedure of just draining the tanks, taking the readings from the JPI and then programming them into a fuel table in the JPI, and then I will be good to go. Everything else on the plane is great. I got the turbo working again by lubricating it with some mouse milk. The wastegate was getting stuck, and so I got the turbo working and went out and tested it on a flight to San Francisco. From Southern California to San Francisco, it takes me about 2 hours at lower altitudes. If I wanted to climb up higher and use the turbo, I could probably get there much quicker. But not much point unless I'm going on a further flight. So I am going to take this up to Oregon in a couple weeks, and I will be testing the higher flight levels with that. So that should be pretty exciting. We should see much higher speeds up there. Let's go inside the plane and take a tour. Coming up here, you have your step, but the wing is already pretty low. So honestly, I can put my foot up on the wing without using the step. Here's the hat rack in the back. There's the rear seats. And there's my panel. That is a 201 Mooney panel. That is not the factory F panel. There's also these little levers over here. You can see that's for reclining the seat. And these seat backs also come out, which means this whole area can be flattened out and I can put a dog bed in here and the dog has plenty of space. This plane is equipped with manual landing gear. Here's the J-bar for the landing gear, and then the flaps are right here. So this is a hydraulic flap system. You just pump it. Moonies do not use cables, so the aileron full deflection is only a few degrees. So that's full right turn. This is full left turn. And you'll notice that the Mooney controls are very stiff. So I posted a video on my Instagram of a flight instructor who I let take off in my Mooney for her first time, and she was surprised by how heavy the controls were. And so that is something to note. Some people don't like that, but for me, I really enjoy it. I can feel everything that the plane is doing. This is what my panel looks like. You have an IFR GPS here. You have the ERA 660 up here. I have my autopilot right here. 2 G5s, sort of standard 6-pack layout, and this is my engine instruments right here, all in the JPI. Very nice setup. The turbo is engaged with this right here, and it's like having a second throttle. So when this pops up, I have my manifold pressure up here. When you run out of manifold pressure, you can increase it with your turbocharger knob. On the gauge temperature, the other thing with the turbo is you have your TIT, which is turbo inlet temperature. So that's one other difference with the turbocharged Mooney. And yeah, this is just a really nice, clean airplane. The carpet and everything is in great shape. So I totally lucked out on this plane. I'm going to do the fuel tank thing right now. I just finished up with the tank calibration. I put the airplane on a battery tender because we were running the fuel pump to get the fuel tanks drained. This was the last thing that I had to do to get the plane ready to go for long trips. So we're all squared away, everything is set up. I am ready to fly this plane across the country. That is all I have for you. Thank you for watching, and as always, make sure that you enjoy your car.